Okay, so here is our last type of genetic problem that I want you guys to be comfortable with. This is what is called incomplete dominance. Okay, so with an incomplete dominance scenario, incomplete dominance is when you have one trait but you have three variations. Okay, so one trait, three variations that can occur. So the example I want us to think about is humans, human hair. So we have people who naturally, just genetically, are born with curly hair. We have people who are born with straight hair. And generally, when those two individuals combine their genetics, they produce individuals who have wavy hair. So here's one variation of hair that's curly, another variation straight, and then a third variation wavy. Now generally the third variation is going to be the heterozygote, or the combination of curly and straight to produce wavy. Okay, so if we look at the picture to the left there, you got a woman with curly hair. We're going to give her, and I'm just making these letters up, big H represents curly hair. The guy to the right of her, he's got straight hair. Now, I want to stay with the same letter. I want to stay with H's. I do not want to go with S's or anything like that, so stay with H's. But I'm going to give him little h, little h. This is just to designate that he has straight hair. It does not designate dominance or recessive. And then the wavy-haired offspring would be big H, little h. They're the combination of these two individuals. Okay, so that's one way to represent an incomplete dominance scenario. Another way is, okay, so let me erase all this, is by using one letter for the alphabet. You choose. Let's just stay with H's. Okay, get all that out of there. Okay, we're going to stay with H's. Just change color here. And you would go, instead of big H, you would go H1, H1. That represents curly. And then they're going to cross with H2, H2. That will represent straight. And when you take one of these and one of these, you get an H1, H2. And the H1, H2 individual is going to be the wavy-haired individual. They're the half and half of each of the parents. Okay, so again, that's what we talk about with incomplete dominance. So when you are reading the genetic problems, and it says you have this particular variation and then this variation, and it gives you a third variation, that should hopefully trigger you guys to say, oh, incomplete dominance. It's kind of like the rock, paper, scissors game. You have three variations. Right? You don't have one of them that blocks the other one and one that's recessive to the other one. The only way you get curly to show up is with two of these H1, H1s, straight is H2, H2s, and then when they combine and you have half and half, third variation expresses. Okay, so let me show you a different way this problem may be presented. You have an individual with wavy hair, and they're going to have children with someone who has straight hair. What do we think we can get here? Okay, so again, it needs to be presented that there are three variations. So the problem may actually start out by saying, curly and straight and wavy are all variations of a population. It may say something like a curly individual with this individual produces these offspring, etc. But if you were told wavy crossed with straight, and we've established wavy as the H1, H2, and that individual is crossed with an individual who has straight hair, which we've established as H2, H2, what do we think we're going to get? H1, H2, oh, you're wavy. H1, H2, you're wavy. So we got 2 wavy. And then H2, H2, and H2, H2. Those would be 2 straight-haired individuals. So we would not expect any type of curly-haired individuals from these 2 parents, wavy and straight. Well, let's change it up one more time. Let's get rid of this individual. Let's switch them out. And let's switch out this. And let's make it 2 wavy-haired individuals that are going to reproduce. Okay, so let me go back, and I have 2 wavy-haired individuals that are reproducing. So H1, H2, H1, H2. If these 2 alleles combined, you got H1, H1. If this allele and that allele combine, you have an H1, H2. That allele and that allele, H1, H2. Those 2 alleles, H2, H2. So in this scenario, we actually could produce 1 individual who is curly, 2 individuals who are wavy, and 1 individual who has straight hair. So all 3 phenotypes are actually present if you have 2 wavy-haired individuals reproducing. So just look at the wording of the problem. If you have 2 wavy-haired individuals, it indicates 2 wavy-haired individuals are having children and they produce curly, wavy, straight. They give you 3 variations. Look at that. That hopefully is the trigger that, hey, this is an incomplete dominance scenario. Okay, so we will see examples of this. We will see scenarios like this as we get into the genetics, and especially as we get into the labs, the quizzes, the exam for sure. You'll make sure you guys can report or solve these different types of genetic problems. Okay, so monohybrid, codominance, sex-linked, incomplete dominance. Those are the 4 types of problems I want you to be able to solve and answer as we get into genetics. Okay, so let me just clear that up. Alright, so I want you to make sure you guys can do monohybrid, monohybrid, 1 trait, 2 variations, codominance, where we have the blood typing. This is the only one, so when it says blood typing, go to codominance. Blood type, we have 4 blood types. We have A, we have B, we have O, and we have AB. Okay? We did sex-linked. And with sex-linked, XX for ladies, XY for men. You have to go to the X chromosome when we talk about the particular trait. It goes on the X chromosome. It's either a big A, it could be a little a, it could be a big B, little b, etc. But that always is going on the X chromosome. Okay, so highlight that aspect, X chromosome for sex-linked. And then incomplete dominance. incomplete dominance, one trait, and you have 1, 2, 3 variations. Okay, terms to be comfortable with. Genotype, can you define that or give an example? Phenotype, can you define that, give an example? Dominant versus recessive. Homozygous versus heterozygous. Okay, so make sure you guys can define these terms and you know what they mean, because when you see these problems, you have to be able to read the problem, look for the word homozygous, heterozygous, apply the genetic information to those individuals, factor it, determine the genotype, phenotype. You absolutely have to be able to set up and determine the results from a Punnett square. If you do not show me your square, you will not get full credit. So make sure that is always done. And then give me ratios. Ratios can be done as 2 to 2, 1 to 1, 3 to 1, I don't care. You could do it as percentages, 50% to 50%. You could do whatever. That's fine for the ratios. But you got to give me those ratios and then say, here is the genotypic ratio. This ratio might be 2 to 2, where the phenotypic might be a 1 to 2 to 1. It may be different. The phenotypic and genotypic ratio could easily be different in the same problem. It's based upon what you're going to see. Okay, so make sure you guys are comfortable with this. Review the videos as many times as needed. Uncertainties, not sure, you just want to make sure you're getting it, definitely bounce me an email, and I'm more than happy to go back over this. But you have to get these problems down for the genetics exam, because you will have problems just like the 5 different problems that I've shown you. And then last thing, I don't want to forget this. Let me make some room. The last thing I absolutely want you guys to be able to do is to set up and draw out a family tree and then apply these problems to the family tree. Okay, so you want to, when it says draw a family tree, we're looking for 3 generations. At least. So 3 generations. You got P generation, F1 generation, F2 generation. Circles represent females, squares to males. Here's their child combined with a child from the other side of the family. And now, what are we possibly going to produce in our offspring? What are the possible chances of this trait or that trait, or the variations showing up? Okay, so make sure, again, you guys can set up family tree and you can apply the appropriate information. The genotypic information goes in the circles and squares. Phenotypic information, I would put it underneath it. So brown hair, blue eyes, big A, big B, little b, etc. So genotypic inside, phenotypic underneath. And then can you determine the genetics of everybody in that family tree based upon patterns of inheritance?